Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, your favorite Giants podcast. I'm your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike, the Cranky Fan, and we have a ton to get through today. The first wave of free agency has started, and that is the legal tampering period. I believe the league year started yesterday, officially at noon.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so a flurry of moves, all kinds of stuff. The Giants were very, very active. Additions, subtractions, some, self-inflicted subtractions. And then some familiar faces, even some surprises. And we got one hot off the press as we're recording this. So we got a lot to get into. How you doing, Cranky Fan?
Doing well, doing well. I apologize for the show being late. I've been doing some traveling this week. Just got home about an hour ago and off to Nashville tomorrow for the SEC championship, but always have time to talk Giants. And, we're going to get into all the different moves that have happened. And I was talking with somebody yesterday that was kind of complaining that we didn't hit a home run. And I was like, well, when you hit a lot of singles and doubles, that might be more important at this point than going for the home run. And that's kind of, as we're wrapping up the tampering period, that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. We've hit a lot of the batting average is okay. We're not going to have any 3-run homers, but this team needs a lot still. The enthusiasm for a new coach, but this is still a team that's a long way to go to get where they need to be. And they started addressing some of the things they need right away. So that's my thoughts.
The Giants organizationally have been striking out left and right. So I will welcome several singles and doubles over home runs. We've just got the confidence to swing now. So give us a little bit while we stretch our arms. So we have a ton to comb through here, and I kind of want to. There is no great way to do this. So the best way we could think to do this was to kind of go with a tit for tat, position by position, and then kind of look at where the roster as it stands right now. So we're going to start with some of the guys that were lost in free agency, and then the replacements or whatever, and then the state of that position group. So at tight end, the Giants lost Daniel Bellinger, and this is probably the most surprising deal of everything that we saw. The Titans scooped him up for 3 years, $24 million. Did you ever in your life imagine that Daniel Bellinger was going to get $8 million a year?
No, I mean, it's interesting how, Tennessee obviously had a plan to get some guys that, Brian Dable wanted. Remember, he's just an offensive coordinator. He's not the head coach over there. So it's interesting the moves that they made for this. If a team wants to overspend for something that you don't think is worth it, you just say farewell and we'll move on, because this is not a team that should be chasing guys. And even people like Bellinger, who's nice, but he's not he's like not Mike Ditka as a tight end or something, or one of the great tight ends of all time. So they want to spend it, go for it.
He's kind of like a glue guy, you know what I mean? Like a do-it-all, whatever. And I value that. Utility tight end. I think it's really, really important to have a guy like that. The thing that's weird is that, Daniel Bellinger wasn't really even getting much playing time in Dable's offense the last 2 years. I understand they drafted Theo Johnson, but,
He had 48% of the snaps last year.
All right. That is more than I expected. He didn't have a whole lot of targets. I'll say it that way.
Okay, yeah.
I understand that Theo Johnson was kind of the focal point, but then we get into this this world of is Theo Johnson more Joe Shane's guy than Brian Dable's guy, or what? It's just interesting. Or was this price actually driven up? Because it kind of just feels like, I'm sure Daniel Bellinger's agent was getting a few calls, but I'm struggling to imagine multiple teams upping the ante to the point where the Titans came in with a 3-year, $24 million offer. It just seems strange.
Seems strange to me too.
But I guess we'll see. How active Daniel Bellinger is in Tennessee in the offense, how helpful he is for Cam Ward. I wouldn't be shocked if he is, a decent portion of that offense and ends up being a good signing for them.
I expect to see what he kind of is now being over there. I mean, if you have basically the same guy running it's his offense. That's what he wants. I mean,
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he be used more now when he was the head coach and having a major influence on the offense? So I think what you saw is what you're going to get production wise. And we're going to look back at that and say they probably did overspend.
Yeah. But here's the funny thing. And I don't want to talk about this too much, but we're going to be talking about the Titans, kind of a lot during this episode, so just get this out of the way. It is funny that like Robert Saleh kind of only gives a shit about his defense and Brian Daboll kind of only gives a shit about his offense. Like if that relationship between the two of them can work like pretty well, I don't know. Maybe that ends up working over there. But I do think eventually, like when trepidation hits, like if after 2 years they're still struggling, I could see that relationship just fracturing because it's going to be a
Oh,
fight over money. It's going to be which side of the ball needs more money.
but you also, this thing I never like is having too many cooks in the kitchen.
Mm,
And it's just saying, you're in charge of the offense, go run with it. It's your baby, go do it. You know, you don't have people tinkering in meetings and, jumping on the headset during a game or things like that and letting them do what they want to do.
mm.
Um, you know, figuring out how you're going to cut up the different parts of the pie in the off season, that's a secondary problem, I think, to, what you're doing during the season and in game situations.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, as a corresponding move, and I think one of the first moves that the Giants did, they signed Isaiah Likely out of Baltimore to a 3-year, $40 million deal. This is a big deal. This is a big part of uh, John Harbaugh's offense and Greg Roman, just everything that they've cultivated over there in Baltimore and what they believe in. Isaiah Likely in the run game, he's one of those like lighter tight ends. It's more like a basketball player. He's not your traditional like 6'6", 260-pound guy. He's 6'4", 240 or whatever, right? And he's much more of a quick twitch receiving threat who's athletic at the catch point and can run all these routes and whatever. But he is a contributor in the run game, especially move blocking. He's very important out on the edge. So he does play a specific role. I do think I was a little bit surprised looking at like his stats as a name because he's had so many clutch plays. Like a good percentage of his catches are highlight catches, and he's been like people's fantasy sort of darling or whatever. That all that information of a guy who's like on the outside for me. I'm not paying super close attention. You just get the sense that they rack up a ton of stats, and it's not really true. I mean, it's really around like 400, 500 yards a season. So where did you
Yeah,
land when you heard this? I mean, were you like, yep, I kind of saw that coming.
I kind of saw it coming. If we're replacing Wendell Robinson as the guy who kind of can do, that type of role in the offense, I think they wanted to have a bigger guy who can be more of you know, a blocker in a tight end type position. Because we'd said, before this started, that little flexy position might be someone who could be a fullback or, or someone who can catch out of the backfield or something. So this guy to me feels like he's kind of that role in the offense, what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna flex him out. He's not gonna be like an inline tight end or anything. He'll be
Right.
at times he'll be in the backfield, or at times he'll be in sort of an H position offset, like down in a 3-point stance, but not on the line and whatever. But like, yeah, he's just not a
So,
forward ahead block guy or anything like that.
so here's my question for you, Grump. It's not necessarily him replacing Bellinger. How do you feel in the offense of him replacing Wandell? I know they're not exactly apples to apples, but how they serve the offense, I think they're going to be pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean I don't know. I'm trying to think. So I mean, people have this vision of Wandale Robinson based on like, a couple of years where he was always within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and that's Brian Daboll's role for him, or it wasn't, and it was due to injury, or maybe he started running downfield more due to injury. I have no idea. Wandale Robinson's ability and his, what he can contribute to an offense, I think is much more robust as a receiver than Isaiah Likely. But in terms of like, I don't think there's going to be like that role as like as we transition out of the Brian Daboll offense. I think there's going to
Mhm.
be because like you look at his like yards per route run and stuff, like it's way down. It's like 10, 11 yards down the field. His average
Right.
catches, they're like 12 yards down the field. But in terms of like they're always like explosive plays. You know what I mean? Like they're all these like high point catches. He works really well on like broken plays.
Mhm.
So, I don't I feel like that this filled a role that was possibly missing, right? Because you now have him working in tandem with Theo Johnson. They've re-signed Chris Manhertz, which we didn't talk about yet. Chris Manhertz is going to resume that role as the blocking tight end guy. He's, in the goal line situations, whatever. He does have the ability to catch the ball. It's not like he has stone hands. He's just slow. So he's not going to run any routes and whatever. But, like, I do think that there's probably going to be some like power formation things where he slips out and is a receiver in the flat or something like that to move the chains or whatever. But you have this more important tandem of 1A, 1B between Isaiah Likely and Theo Johnson, where they're both, Theo Johnson's a better blocker, also athletic, dynamic down the field tight end who makes the high point catches, whatever. Isaiah Likely is probably a little bit more reliable, right? He's got a very, very low drop rate. Early in his career, I think 4 per year the first 2 years, and then 1 the last 2 years. So I think that we have now an expanded dynamic. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think anyone is running that like 5-yard out route or whatever, that roll or whatever that Wan'Dale had. But I think you have 2 guys now that can run down the seam. They can run dig routes. They can run corner or post. They're big. They can box guys out. They can run curls, hooks. I think you have 2 big, diverse guys that are versatile, and they truly give you, that flex between blocking and receiving and getting downfield. It's all 3 between the 2 of them, and that makes me feel good.
Yeah, me too.
Long-winded. I'm sorry. Just yammering over here. So we talked about Chris Manhertz. Let's talk about Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale signed with the Tennessee Titans. Also, 4 years, $78 million. That's just shy of 20 a year. I think it's 19 point whatever. That's about right. It's a significant portion of our offense, though.
Something, kudos to him, because, he's going to the back to staying with the Brian Dable offense, and that Brian Dable offense got him this big contract. So there's a comfort for him that he's going to get his money. He has a young quarterback that he can develop with. So as we're saying goodbye to him, and I think we both liked him, and I think it's a good situation for him, but it does leave some things for us to think about.
So this is the most interesting part of this episode, probably because this happened like right now. I guess you could say in response, corresponding-ish moves to Wan'Dale Robinson leaving, which I agree with you, by the way. Sticking with Brian Dable, and for that money, if you were offered $21 million to go somewhere else, I would take the 19.
And then an offense you're comfortable with, and one that's highlighted you and made you, what you are.
You're comfortable with him. He's comfortable with you. There's trust between the 2 of you. You know what your role is in his offense. Yeah, of course. But the Giants did some re-signing early to kind of offset some of this. They need help in the outside. They re-signed Isaiah Hodgins early. Remember, we were saying this at south of the border last year. It's like, I can't believe they're rolling with this wide receiver room. Isaiah Hodgins is out there. I know he's not great, but I mean, come on. This room is bad, and he's out here doing nothing. So they just got that out of the way early. They also re-signed...
That was the Turtles' last words, but before he died at south of the border, was re-sign Isaiah Hodgins.
Yeah, yeah. The flipper, bleeding out. He was
R.I.P.
Yeah. They also got this one out of the way. They signed Gunnar Olszewski. They got the returner thing. Whether he makes the roster or not, but they the returner position is covered going into the draft. We don't have to worry about anything going into training camp.
And we didn't spend that much money for either of them either. So
I doubt it. We don't know. So this is sort of just an underlying thing here. The reason we're not like way up or way down on anything that's happened is because a lot of contract details aren't really out yet. We have some of the major ones they've spilled out, but even then, like Wan'Dale Robinson's 4-year deal might be a 3-year deal, it might be a 2-year deal. I have no idea. Based on where the dead cut is, how the money is divided too, where like I'm not going to lose my mind over a signing that cost a lot of us money if we don't know the details yet. If that cap money is pushed into another year and we're okay under the cap this year, I'm going to have a different opinion than if it's all front loaded or if it's evenly distributed. So I'm holding our true full opinion until we have all that information.
And we'll have a special episode of cap implication, and our real thoughts about it once it happens. But right now, you're right. This is right now is about the opposite really with the NFL is we're getting names, we're losing names. Let's just talk about the names and the talent, and then we'll deal with how the jigsaw puzzle fit financially later.
So the true offset to Wan'Dale Robinson is the Giants just signed Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Calvin Austin. So I'm not like prepared really to talk about Calvin Austin, but it's according to Giants Nation Show and Art Stapleton a 1-year deal with it's $1.5 million with incentives that could raise it up to $4.5 million. So it's very cheap. Offhand, what I remember about Calvin Austin. I think he came out of Memphis, the University of Memphis. I see you clicking around on your phone there. So troubleshoot me. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I am just right as I'm texting a buddy of mine who's a big Steeler fan. I was like, "Hey, thoughts on Calvin Austin?" So
Okay.
we'll get that scoop
Okay.
as soon as it comes back.
I'm pretty sure he went to the University of Memphis. I'm 100% sure he went to the Senior Bowl. And so I got to see him there, and I was happy about him down there. He and Wan'Dale are similar. They're short guys. I think Austin might be 5'8". I think Wan'Dale's 5'7". So hey, maybe
He's
we
5'9".
gained him. He's 5'9".
162.
Look at that. Look at me pulling numbers. I was off by an
Wow.
inch.
And he did go to Memphis.
There you go. Really, really quick twitch, short area space guy. He is quicker than he is fast, but he is pretty fast. I don't think that he has the same athleticism or like toughness that Wan'Dale Robinson has. Like Wan'Dale took some serious shots, and the only real injury I remember with him was tearing his ACL. One year, his rookie year. I'm not sure that Calvin Austin can withstand the same kind of punishment or break tackles as well as Wan'Dale Robinson. So I think for him, what you're getting, and of course you're paying him $1.5 million, and I think his production in Pittsburgh is not even close to what Wan'Dale's was statistically. So I think really you're going to be those 3-yard situations, or goal line situations where you have like those quick mesh concepts. Those things where you just need like a 4-yard chunk plays and that's it, where he's just going to get tackled, go down, or go out of bounds. Or maybe he can juke somebody and you get a little something explosive out of it. But all you need is those like quick little yards. I think Calvin Austin is good for that.
He also returns punts.
Hey, well, that's something, right?
You know,
But here's the
it's a little
thing.
battle with Gunnar Rosinski to see. We just talked about him, and we got that figured. Now we have a little bit of a competition, and we'll see what happens with that.
Well, maybe not. I mean, here's the other thing. It's okay for Gunnar Olszewski to be a backup slot receiver in an offense that doesn't really prioritize the slot receiver or utilize it heavily. So now you're talking about if Calvin Austin is hurt, assuming that he's the starting slot, right? If he's hurt for 2 weeks, you could probably run an offense where Gunnar Olszewski gets like 8 offensive snaps. You know what I mean? Like, somewhere between like 10 and 20, like very, very low over 2 weeks. Whereas when Wan'Dale gets hurt, having to put Gunnar Olszewski in there is, you're asking for him to take on a significant portion of the offense now. And that's not the same. So more importantly, in an offense that doesn't prioritize the slot, if Gunnar Olszewski gets hurt and Calvin Austin has to play slot and return punts, you're not really putting a starter back there to return punts, are you?
No, no.
So I think that that's a good move. We'll see what those incentives are and how reachable they are to get it up to $4.5 million. Will change my opinion of it, because I just offhand, like I said, I'm pretty sure statistically Calvin Austin has not been that productive at the NFL level. Not the way I hoped at the Senior Bowl.
I mean, looking at his stats real quick, his rookie year didn't even play. He was hurt. The last 3 years, 17 receptions, 36 and 31. Averaged 10.6, 15.2, and 12.0, 13.1 career average. Does have a 72-yard touchdown catch and also a 73-yard punt return, too.
Okay. Yeah, so he, like I said, like there are exciting things about him. But he is small, he lacks length, and he doesn't have Wan'Dale's athleticism to offset that.
Here's something interesting. First year he played 2023, he actually had 11 rushing attempts. So they might have been using him like an end around, but they did not use him that way in 2024 or last year.
Trying to think who the quarterback was in Pittsburgh in 2023.
Oh, jeez.
Wasn't Fields.
No, it was
before Fields and Wilson. It was it? Oh gosh, I really don't know. How horrible is this? We're not AFC people, clearly.
No, no kidding. For a team that's on TV all the time, we don't know.
Yeah.
First, without Ben Roethlisberger, we know that. But who is it?
Was it like Kenny Pickett or something? I feel
Kenny
like
Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitch Trubisky.
Hey, wow. Okay. So yeah,
Wow, that is a shit sandwich.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of run plays.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So I'm sorry. We're getting so Cordell Flott, corner, signs with the Titans, 3 years, $45 million. That's a $15 million a year. That's about on the high end of correct. I think it could have been way out of control, and people could have overdone. But we'll see. We'll see if he's. Everyone makes the connection to Brian Dable, but like it is Robert Saleh's defense, so
right.
That is kind of a little surprising.
Don't you think? I'm sure there was feedback. I'm sure there was, organizational discussions about, the roster and organizational discussions about who's available. And I'm sure he had his 2 cents in for it.
Sure. And I think they signed him and Alontae Taylor, so they're just overhauling everything. But that is a significant problem for the Giants. Cordell Flott
we had going into free agency, we had a problem. Now we have a real problem.
Yeah, and it seemed like the Giants were trying very hard. John Harbaugh said that the goal, I think it was John Harbaugh, maybe it was Joe Shane, but I thought it was Harbaugh, said the goal was to sign 2 or 3 of their big-name free agents. And they lost. They were pushing hard for Flott, was a report that came out before he signed with the Titans. They couldn't get it done. I don't know what it was that was the breaking point or why that 15 a year crossed a red line, or maybe it was whatever, but it is what it is. They did want to try and keep him, but it crossed the line that they weren't.
Remember, when you're a free agent, it's your decision where you want to go. He just may didn't want to be here anymore.
That's also true. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in response, the Giants signed Greg Newsome. I'm going to call him Junior because the second shit is really dumb. Corner, he was drafted, first-round pick for the Cleveland Browns, was traded last year to the Jacksonville Jaguars, on an expiring contract. There's a reason for all this, right? It's a 1-year deal that, as much as we know right now, is worth up to $8 million, but only $3 million is guaranteed. We don't know any of those details. It could be that it's a $3 million deal with incentives up to $8 million, or it could be more than that, where only $3 million is the guaranteed portion. But regardless, they're getting a corner this is an okay signing, but it's not like, oh, that's a starting corner right there. Like, this is a good deal for a guy who has a ton of talent but never quite put it together. I'm very weary of first-round cornerbacks for this reason. It seemed like it was a steal in the draft, and like a no-brainer. And
now his contract deal is getting $8 million. I mean, if there's someone that's a steal in the draft and played well at a very expensive position, look at what Cordell Flott just got, and look at what he's getting.
Yeah, exactly. Cordell Flott's a 3rd-round pick. So it's one of those things where there are a lot less Sauce Gardners than there are. So it is what it is. He's definitely somebody that can compete, right? And I think that if it's in a system that he's comfortable with, I mean, like, his problem is down the field. He plays very much with things in front of him. He has good closing speed. He's a talented kid. He's still young. I think he's 25 years old. 26. He's 26 years old. He has plenty of athleticism. He's got ball skills. It's just when he has to turn his back to the quarterback, he gets all screwed up. Big plays tend to happen. It's not quite the Deontay Banks, like, just totally lost on the position, and not. It's just, I feel like it. I don't think he just has the swag and confidence when his back is to the quarterback. So again, it's an upside thing. Can you fix that in him? Possibly. Should you be penciling him as a starter? Absolutely not. You need somebody else here. He should be your backup guy.
And we'd feel okay, if he has to be the backup and comes in and we need him for a couple of snaps or a couple of series or something. It's not like, oh my God, they're just going to start picking on him immediately, right. Which is part of the problems this team has had over the last couple of years is the lack of depth, especially back there. So.
Oh my God, yeah, exactly. And like, offensive game plan out the window for other teams. I mean, they're like, oh, he's on the field, just
go for it.
We're just going to keep calling plays to that side. They also re-signed Art Green and Nick Jones. Those are primarily special teams players, but they are corners. Art Green, usually like a third string corner. Nick Jones was like a backup slot corner, flashed in camp. I think he's the first Jackson Dart pass, and he picked it off and took it to the house. Was that Nick Jones?
Oh, I think it was.
We were at that training camp practice, right?
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
so, those are primarily special teams guys, but they do serve a role in the defense with, like, being third string. And then Nick Jones, I guess, would really just be your backup slot corner right now. So that's
Let's
corner.
see. Let's see what these two when we get through camp and any signing pickups or anything like, cut down day guys or something.
Yeah, I'm sure that they'll try and add a corner in the draft, but I got to be honest, I'm not going to feel really comfortable about that guy being a starter either, or even competing with a starting spot for a starting spot. I would like them to really sign like a cheap veteran corner and just somebody reliable. Where it's like the athleticism is on the downswing, but like he's smart. He's not going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's a team player. You know what I mean? Like he's a professional. He's just
that's why
losing
I
his
think that guy will be
athleticism.
available in
Cut
August.
downs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, also a lot of those guys at most positions that they know that there sometimes is a better chance to get a better deal if you just wait till after the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
that can happen too. On the offensive line, the Giants lost Austin Schlottman, their backup center, to the Tennessee Titans. You might think that that's no big deal, but there wasn't really much of a drop-off when he had to play for John Michael Schmitz, so it's a big enough deal to the Giants. So they lost him. They have not re-signed or signed a center to date, but what they have done is they've re-signed 2 interior offensive linemen, and one is a little bit surprising. One is Aaron Stinney. That was today. Aaron Stinney.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, not him.
Yeah. Aaron Stinney is, he's a veteran. He's a veteran backup. That's all he'll ever be, but that's okay. That's, you need veteran backups on your team.
Yep.
They also re-signed Evan Neal. The story is that John Harbaugh was a big fan of his in the draft, and he thinks that there is something there. I do get the sense that as much as John Harbaugh might have liked him in the draft and the way that he likes big bodies on the inside, I do think that he's going to try and move him to the inside. I don't think that there's going to be a big experiment with him back at tackle and whatever. The foot speed and shit, it's not going to change. I also think that it's possible that this is such a minimal deal that he just doesn't even make it through camp,
That's kind of why I wasn't gonna go crazy about this. I know there was a lot of people, the memes came out and the outrage, like, how can you resign this guy? Because a lot of the Giants, the brunt of the aggravation kind of fell on his shoulders, fairly or unfairly. And, when you bring him back, it's like, oh, how can you do this? But you're right. I think it's 50-50 at best. He's even in uniform an opening day. There wasn't like a big demand for him out there, so it's not like you got to overspend to take this little, use this lottery ticket. And if Harbaugh liked him before and there's physical traits they can try, you go for it, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So why not? Hello?
I was muted. How silly of me. I always forget that part of my job here is to be active on Twitter. It's where a lot of information comes quickly and allows me to get a head start on doing research to get content out quickly and obviously spread content. And I forget that a lot of people aren't consistently active on Twitter, nor should you be. So this is a time where football fans are really totally out of the woodwork as the lead up to the draft and free agency starting and the news is flying from Adam Schefter. This is the place to be. And I forget that, a million people that don't usually respond to my stuff are going to start responding. And I had a second thought. I was going to tweet something about Evan Neal before the re-signing, and I didn't because I was like, you know what? It's not even worth the conversation because it takes some nuanced thinking, and Twitter today is not the place for any nuanced conversation. But I kept going through lists of expiring contracts, PFF lists of grades on, interior linemen blocking and just kind of coming up with names. I'm like, okay, don't know anything really about that player. Let me watch some film or whatever. Let's see what I can find, or find what people think of him or articles about him, and then see if that fits into the Giants universe of a potential free agent target. And a name that I kept coming across for guys that might fit would be like Evan Neal. You know what I mean? He had on the expiring contract, was going to come cheap, is kind of a flyer. He's the bigger body guy, was a high for this is Greg Newsome, but not as bad.
You know what I think you should do? What fans, my advice for you this offseason and going into training camp, give him a different name.
Yeah.
This is no longer Evan Neal, first round draft pick,
Just
first
call him
round
Daniel
bust.
Falele. I mean, like it
Let's,
is.
yeah.
Uh, Daniel
Let's call him,
Falele
let's
kind of.
call him Dirk Diggler or whatever. Just something that it's not the same person you thought of before.
Yeah.
It's just a guy who's, honestly fighting for a roster spot, for the money they probably spent for him. And he's getting thrown in there and see what he can do. And if there's anything they can kind of glean out of him. So I think if you can do that, I know it's hard. I know, the weight of the world is still on his shoulders from a lot of fans, but I just think if you just think of him as a completely different person, and again, the Giants 2026 season is not resting on what Dirk Diggler does at right guard, but
I want to give him
try
a.
to have an open mind.
I love this. I want to give him a real fake name. You came up with that one kind of on the spot. Let's give it some time. Let's give him a real fake name and just legitimately never refer to him as Evan Neal again. And maybe he can earn his name back if he like earns a starting spot or something. We'll give it. But like,
Please, all your best. If you're still listening to this show, your
submissions.
best suggestions, please tweet us at Just Giants Pod or send us something on Instagram or whatever. Like notes in the on the show on YouTube, because we'd love to. We'll come up with some good ones for next episode, but we want to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, I need a good one. And all options are on the table, including like Hugh Janus, whatever. Because we'll just
That's
call him
Jameis
by
Winston. Come on.
but we'll just call him by his last name, so it would just be like Janus. So like no one would know. Like the joke would be lost, but it would still be funny on the inside for us.
Hey,
And
we need to get
you,
through
me,
this
and the
somehow.
listeners.
Thank you.
The Jets signed Dane Belton, defensive back, a big-time core special teams player and a good one. I thought he was a very good rotational safety, just somebody who you can pop in there, and he was productive in that role. Obviously not somebody you want starting, but as a backup is very, very good. It's a one-year deal worth like up to $6 million. We don't know anything. So in terms of should the Giants have re-signed him, it's hard to tell based on that. Their corresponding move, though, was Ardarius Washington, a shorter defensive back who kind of worked between safety and slot, which is why I consider them both DBs and not really separate positions when I talk about players. Special teams guy as well. They got him on 1 year, $3 million. So I feel, and also, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know a ton about Ardarius Washington. Dane Belton did have, dating back to Iowa, this knack for just being in the right place at the right time. Like a ton of ball production.
Picks.
Yeah, he just gets, like, he's not undercutting stuff or like this blanket coverage or winning 50-50. He's just in the right place at the right time consistently. And that's a smart player, whatever. And that carried through to the Giants. I don't think Ardarius Washington has that, but here's where they're different and it's better for the Giants in this category. Dane Belton, subpar tackler on defense. Special teams, when he's running downfield or whatever, he's okay. But when he's got to like square up and make a tackle, Ardarius Washington is much better than him. He lays the. I mean, he's a shorter guy. I'm not going to say
There seems to be a recurring theme with all this, Grump, is that these guys, they're 1 year deals, taking flyers, but we know they're kind of football players. Like
Right.
he's a little better tackler. They're not investing the next 12 years for him or 7 years at busting the cap. It's like we mentioned this on the last episode. Stopgap guys who can play. Just to get us through, make us respectable as we're building a core. And this is a pick that sounds like that too. He can tackle.
Yeah.
Let's just start with the basics to get us through this season and develop, the culture and develop, what this new coaching staff wants to do.
I agree. Last lost player that I'm aware of, unless I missed a name or we're forgetting someone, is Casey Kreider. Long snapper. has signed with the Arizona Cardinals. I don't remember the terms of the deal. That is a bummer. The Giants did not sign a long snapper yet, so they are without a long snapper. Casey Kreider did a great job here.
You pick it up in like either the draft or is it free, like off the street,
yeah,
kind of.
probably like it's usually like 7th-round pick or UDFA.
Mm.
They always have like long snappers at the Senior Bowl. I don't watch them. I don't know. I don't really know what to tell you. They don't really do much. Like I'm not. So this is a little behind the scenes thing. Like there's like practice going on in the field. Long snappers and I think also punters for the most part are like they're like behind the sidelines, like right up against the wall where like the stands are. They're just snapping. That's it. And there's not much to see. They're throwing the ball up in the air and catching it. Like they're just kind of hanging out most of the time. And then when they have special teams drills, obviously they're really active. They're kicking, they're punting, they're snapping. But I'm not spending any Senior Bowl time watching a long snapper, is I guess where I'm getting. But the Giants did sign special teams players. Okay, they signed 2 very, very important ones. Punter Jordan Stout, a 3-year deal worth $12 million. That makes him the highest paid punter in the league, an all-pro punter from Baltimore. I'm not really a knowledgeable special teams guy, but like particularly with punts, I don't really know a lot of the in-depth stuff. Bobby shared a video of him talking about all the different like sort of trick punts and things you can do with the ball and how to hook it and make it hard for them to catch and stuff. Seems like a smart guy. It's obviously worked in his favor. He's an all-pro punter. He's got some real serious leg to him. I was looking up some of the longer punts he's had, some of the better hang time ones. He's done a pretty decent job of pinning it inside the 20. But the other thing that goes with that, and not to take anything away from this signing or this player, is the Baltimore Ravens are just a better team. And I think that makes it so much easier on special teams guys. Like, you know what I mean?
You're not
like
punting out of the shadow of your goalpost all the time.
Constantly. Yeah, I know, right? And it's like you're a better team. Your special teams in general are better, so you're probably not getting guys rushing in your face constantly. You know what I mean? Like there's just a million things. So, what I'm saying is this was a great signing. I'm happy about it. I don't think I'm going to be worrying about punter going forward at all. Of course, also swirling winds in MetLife, I guess is going to be, there could be a drop off, right? I think that stadium in Baltimore, it is right kind of on the friggin' water. They have terrible rainy weather. It feels like one game every year, right? So I mean, like I think he'll be fine, but we'll see if it transitions seamlessly from who he was then to who he is now. Let's just hope that it's exactly the same. I could see there being a bit of a dip because of all the other factors. It's kind of
There were some weird narratives out there for people like, oh, they overspent that's the highest paid punter now. Why are we doing this? It's like kind of like saying you're complaining about the tallest midget. I mean, you're not spending $30 million for a punter. I think it's something that's important that's showing this team emphasizes special teams, and special teams ultimately start with your kickers. And as much as the Scottish Hammer was, and as much as we've had guys coming in and out as place kickers, I think there's going to be more of an increased emphasis on starting with kicking the ball in special teams, having a better emphasis on special teams, because that's the type of stuff around the margins that's going to help us as we're doing the overall rebuild. And it feels like for a long time, this team has neglected special teams or not made as much of a priority. So the act that they spent in relative terms a lot on a punter tells me that special teams means a little more than the past several administrations have.
Yeah. I kind of view special teams like a little strangely, where like I kind of view the long snapper as kind of the only special teams guy, and I view punter as like sort of defense and kicker as sort of offense. A kicker legitimately scores you points, right? But a punter, he helps he doesn't really help your offense. He helps your defense. He puts your defense in good field position. Like a good kick is a long one that goes through the uprights, right? A good kickoff, I guess, is sort of a defensive play, but
a good kickoff is not a penalty. Now, the way the rules have changed,
or even a touchback. So, but like a good punt in any scenario is one that pins them far back at as close to the goal line as possible, always. If you want to add in the hang time so that they don't even get a chance to return it, that's fine. If you want to add in the angling so it goes out of bounds at the 2 so they don't get a chance to return it, whatever you want to do, they kind of help your defense. So which unit sucked more last year, offense or defense?
Oh, defense, for
exactly.
Sure.
So in my mind, getting a really good punter is sort of contributing a little bit to the defense.
Well, everything is going to help. Having Jackson Dart for a full year is going to help the defense.
Yeah, of course.
The offensive line getting better, having getting better skill position people. All these things are going to help our defense. The defense was bad, but was also not put in the best position to succeed.
That's true.
So, yeah.
The other thing is, like, I understand that people are like, Jamie Gillen, if people are like this, is like Jamie Gillen might not have been very good, but he certainly wasn't the worst part of this. He was still under contract. Did they really need to spend? Like, I think it's this. An all-pro punter was on the market. We could upgrade that position.
Yeah.
So they did. It's not like, you know what I mean? And for an all-pro player, I remember one year the Giants franchise tagged, like, Steve Weatherford or something. Because, like, it was, like, guaranteed, like, $5 million or something. It was, like, nothing. $3 million. It was so cheap. It's like, that's a decent way to use a franchise tag. You're not really getting, he made him, like, top 5 at his position paid, but he's not the top, whatever. So, like, I have no problems with this. I'm not going to get excited about a new punter. I'm going to get excited about the fact that I literally don't have to think about punter at all.
It's the most important thing is those type of things is just, kick it out of bounds when necessary, angle it in the coffin corner, flip the field when you can, and don't shank. Don't put us in a bad position. And the likelihood of that happening is decreased a lot. Tell me about, I think a lot of people like Gillen just because he seemed like a character. And, most punters in the league are pretty anonymous, kind of like referees and umpires. We don't think about them until something bad happens. So hopefully, this is somebody that just you kind of forget his name after a while because A, we're not punting as much because the offense is better, and B, he's not doing things to screw up.
Yeah, I always feel like Jamie Gillen, people just like to blame him for everything that went wrong. I'm not saying he was great or anything like that, but it did feel like sometimes he just got like an insane amount of blame, whatever. But like, here's the thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
This kid seems like he's a hard worker, Jordan Stout. So like my only real concern is like, my only legitimate concern is like, does MetLife present legitimate problems where like somebody like Jamie Gillen can have just like a really shitty year, but like actually be pretty decent at dealing with the wins, but just one year it's just bad and it just looks bad and there's not much you can do about it. You just have to fight it every week. Like, to me, this kid seems like somebody he went through this Harbaugh like training camp of like striving for perfection. Yeah. I feel pretty good. I feel secure about the fact that if he's struggling with it, he's going to keep working at it until he stops struggling with it.
And also the things with the wins too, that is a thing, but it's also like, September, October, even into November, the weather is halfway decent in the Meadowlands too. You're talking about those December games and,
I got to be honest, like it feels like the most overblown fucking talking point in Giants everything. It's like, oh, you can't handle this swirling winds. Build a different one. I don't fucking know what to tell you. Like, stop acting like it's so tough to be here. You made it this way. You put us in the middle of a swamp.
The biggest overblown talking point is the turf, but the second one is the winds and things.
The Giants also signed kicker Jason Sanders from Miami. He did spend last year on IR. He had a hip issue. So that's concerning. It's a one-year deal. As far as I know, we don't know any other details. Ben Sauls is still on the roster. So this is a kicking competition. I believe Jason Sanders was at least a Pro Bowl kicker.
And Grant Gano is still on the roster too?
He is. I don't really know what's going on with that. I was very calm about this last year. I can't believe they haven't done this yet. Surely they'll do this soon, until the next thing I knew, it was summer and like, this is just it. Like, it's just Graham Gano time now. And I got like angry about it. Now I am not, I have no tolerance for chill. Like, I'm not currently angry about it, but I'm going to remain like threat level yellow about this until it happens. And it's going to be threat level red if we get to June. I'm
I
just
mean, we just talked about that. I believe that this is, signing the punter means there's more of a commitment to special teams. So I don't think he's going to get the free pass that he appeared to get, with
well,
with
no, but
Dable and company.
okay, but here's the thing. It's more about the contract. Like, if you're gonna tell me
Mhm.
that they restructure the contract where this dude's making like $1 million flyer, then fine, whatever. I don't care at all. But I don't think he's gonna agree to that at all. So also, people have pointed out that if he's currently still injured, they would not be able to do something. Like, they would have to wait for like an injury settlement or something, and the money wouldn't come to them in full, their returns. So they might have to wait until he can pass a physical before they can
Okay.
cut
Yeah.
him, which is the
Well,
reason. But like I
well, at
said,
least they're making moves like in,
right,
the post Granganil world.
right,
So,
and like I said, like, I'm not flipping out about it. I'm not losing my mind, but I am going to stay on threat level yellow until it actually happens. So they can say that that's the reason or a justification for it. That's fine, but until it happens, I'm gonna be
he's
just
still
like,
here.
he's still here. Um, so now we are down to those are all the guys that the Giants lost to other teams. Here
Mhm.
comes some guys that they've
Oh,
voluntarily
wait a
gotten
minute.
rid of.
Did we talk about Babio Okereke?
No, because we didn't get to cuts.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So
That's
so
why
here
we
we go.
didn't.
Before we get to
Good show
Okereke,
prep.
Jamie Gillen. Jamie Gillen was cut.
Mhm.
Also, I mean, I'm going to go through some ones that I don't think we need to discuss very much. We already kind of talked
Yeah.
about Jamie Gillen. Anthony Johnson, defensive back, was cut. Super duper depth at this point in special teams. Chris Board was cut, linebacker, but also really a core special teams guy. Like, he had a sizable contract.
Mhm.
That cut, I believe, saves them $2 million. So that is. I don't even think that's a player thing. I think that's just a look, dude. We need this money. I'm sorry.
Right.
But also on the linebacker field, the Giants did move on from Bobby Okereke, their starting middle linebacker. That move saved them, I think, $9 million. It's a significant move. It happened early on in the period. And to offset that, they signed Tremaine Edmonds from the Chicago Bears for 3 years, $36 million. As far as I know, we don't know how like that money is broken out.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of people were like, we just paid more money for more Okereke. So before we get into what I think about it, or whatever, what do you think? How you feeling right now?
I was ready to move on from Okereke. We discussed it quite a bit, like right in our predictions show a couple weeks ago that it was decreasing production. Edmonds is younger than Okereke. I think it was time to move on. When guys are leaders and they're not as good as they were, perception, sometimes it's easier just to kind of get rid of them and start over because you know chemistry is important in a locker room too. And I think maybe that's one of those cases where it's just they didn't want to invest in him longer term or anything and just move on.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with moving on with Bobby Okereke. How do you
Yeah.
feel about Tremaine Edmonds being his replacement and the whatever $12 million a year that he's getting?
Seems like it's kind of market value. I don't have a problem with it. Comes from a really good defense, and let's see what he does.
So I actually, when it happened, I had no problem with this signing. None.
Mhm.
Not the contract, not the guy. Tremaine Edmonds is he's not. So first of all, production way up there. Lots of tackles
Mhm.
every single year. For linebacker, that's their job, so that doesn't really necessarily like tell you good or bad. Obviously, you can look at missed tackles, and that would immediately tell you if a linebacker's not very good. But he is good. I like the way he plays. He's very aggressive downhill. He plays very much in front of him. You know what I mean? Like, when he's in coverage, if everything's in front of him, he closes fast. He hits hard. He can separate ball from player. He also is like pretty athletic. I mean, his coverage skills be what they are, but you look at like some of his interceptions he's racked up over the years. It's not like coverage. That's him like diving for tipped passes and stuff. Like,
Mhm.
he's really athletic. So like, you know, it's not an indication of his ability in coverage, but I do think it's an indication consistently throughout his career of him just making splash plays that are game changing. I mean, like a
And that's what we talked
turnover.
about We talked about that kind of trait with Dane Belton before, of like
Oh
he's
yeah,
just around.
exactly. It's just it's not just being around, it's being ball aware, it's being always ready and just in position to just jump, dive and being willing. You know what I mean? Like it's all
Hmm.
those factors together, and you get a play like that, at the 10-yard line of the other team, and you could potentially put 7 points on the board. You get that
Changes the game.
you get that at your own 10-yard line, and you just take 7 points off the board for them. I mean, like, again, you can make mistakes, whatever. But okay, but in terms of coverage, if everything's in front of him, he's pretty good at closing. He'll give up some yards, he'll give up some catches, but he won't really give up a lot of yak. Down the field, he doesn't really get his head around, but like he does understand how to read hands, how to read the receiver's head when he starts looking around, read their eyes, and he knows where to put his hand to make pass breakups. But he's not really like good in coverage or fast. But in the run, he really understands how to make a good solid tackle. That's number one. He hits with authority. Number two, get blockers off of him. So, okay, so he's not shooting the gap and making a tackle for the loss or a tackle at the line of scrimmage, but that run play is only getting 2 yards and they're not falling forward for another. You know what I mean? Like,
And for a defense that had so many problems stopping the run last year, that's important for us.
correct. So he's not going to be the guy flying into the backfield, even if he does attack the edges of like a stretch play very, very well. That's where you get your tackles around the line of scrimmage from him. I think for him, he's going to be cleanup crew. Blockers are not going to be able to sustain a block on him. The linebacker next to him is going to be the one making plays. They're going to be the ones getting the tackle for the loss and around the line of scrimmage. And to that end, at this point, the Giants have also re-signed Micah McFadden to a 1-year deal. It's worth somewhere between $4 and $6 million, depending on escalators that we don't know anything about right now. I'm a big fan of this signing too. Micah McFadden, I think this is a nice, affordable deal. It's a flyer for him coming off of an injury where he was ascending as a player.
Hmm. Just another move of, we're taking a flyer, but, we're not breaking the bank for it or risking anything important. We take a flyer. If it works out with him, great. If not, okay, we move on.
Yeah. I think it also, like, he could be playing next to Tremaine Edmonds or
Mhm.
after the draft or after a second wave of free agency. He might be your first guy off the bench. And if that's the case, then they're in a much better spot at linebacker than they were before. Obviously, with
That's what I'm
McFadden
hoping.
out
I'm
and
actually hoping.
Okereke descending, I mean, I agree with you. I'm hoping for the same.
Mhm.
Other linebackers that were added that are kind of more special teams. Zaire Barnes was signed today. He comes back to this team. He did have some linebacker snaps last year, but it's because we were just destroyed. Mostly
Yeah.
special teams. And Caleb Murphy, I believe, was signed by the Giants. Also, I'm assuming special teams linebacker,
Mhm.
unless I wrote down some information wrong. Okay, other guys that were cut. James Hudson. This one had to happen, right? I mean, they had there's money savings there, and he's terrible, right? Or at
It
least
was one of
worse
the,
than Marcus Moe.
the difference between him and like an Evan Neal was that at least Evan Neal was cheap and was young and had potential. Hudson just was not good from the second he got here. And what's the point?
Evan Neal was also uncuttable.
Yeah.
So, or are
But I
you
guess
talking
I'm
about
saying
like
though,
this
it's like
year? Yeah, yeah,
this one, like
this
it's just
offseason.
like we take a shot and forget it, just move on.
Um, with that being said, it does open up the conversation a little bit. So they didn't really add a tackle. Oh my God, they didn't add a tackle. Who am I kidding? We haven't talked about this yet.
Woo! Burying the lead.
Can I tell you why? It's because I didn't write it down.
Wow.
Idiot. I moved notes around and I didn't move that up there. The Giants
Hey,
and
did you
probably
know that Harbaugh's a new coach too?
yeah.
Did you write that down? Just making sure.
It's like the ESPN app in the day. It would be like, oh, Brandon Jacobs just scored a touchdown. Like, it's Thursday. Why do I just notification for this crap? The Giants, in probably their most important and biggest move, re-signed Jermaine Illuminor, who later said, I am right where I want to be. He had a press conference today. He was wearing a dress shirt or a suit or whatever, and he said, I wanted to tell them that it was important. This was important to me. This was not just another day for me. The deal is for 3 years, $39 million, which means that he comes in at $13 million a year. That makes him 15th among right tackles in total value. He is 17th in AAV among right tackles, as far as I could tell. Those might be off by a little bit depending on if a guy is classified as interior or exterior. But did you think he would be this cheap?
No, no. I think we all talked ourselves into him pricing him out just because, well, the threat of losing him, and we all got nervous and we thought someone's going to take him for 20, 25 million or something ridiculous. And, he came back at a relatively affordable rate. And what's he like? Would you say 15th? So that's like, half the league average. So great.
Yeah. And we have to see how it's structured too. It's 3 years. This could be a 1-year deal. This could be a 2-year deal. It could be all 3 years. I'm not really sure how this is going to be structured.
We were so worried about replacement costs and who we're going to get in and everything. And now that's a huge problem solved.
Yeah. So the Giants did not follow through on their goal of hitting 2 or 3 re-signs of their big free agents, but they did get the most important one, and they got him cheap.
Agreed.
I think that this is huge. He's rock steady as a pass blocker. He's coming off of a career year, returning as a bookend starter with Andrew Thomas. They were lights out as a tackle duo last year. If they can stay healthy, I think that's going to remain. Of course, he does have to get better as a run blocker in this offense, I think. I don't think that it's going to be acceptable for them to, get whatever.
But they're also changing the way the offense is going to be, where they're going to be relying more on tight ends to help out and things too.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very different. This is such a huge move to come in this cheap. And me and Bobby were looking through, and it's like the best comp we had was Taylor Moton, because they were like the same age. They were like, whatever. It's going to go down at this point. I mean, Jermaine Illuminator is sort of on an ascension in his career, but athletically, he is going to be descending. And you're like, okay, well, so Jermaine Illuminator is still on the ascension where Taylor Moton was descending, but Taylor Moton was way better. And he got 2 years, $22 million or something like this. So he's getting, I don't know. I didn't think that this was going to be even close. So $13 million for Jermaine Illuminator. I don't have to think about tackle anymore. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, me too. And a very, very hard position really to replace at, even the same value. So I'm just glad it's taken care of.
And where it relates with James Hudson too is, he felt secure with Marcus Bowe being the first tackle that comes in when somebody gets hurt and just being like, he's not good, but like it's fine. If James Hudson has to go in there, we're in trouble. Like the offense won't function.
Hudson, you knew what he was. He is what he is. He ain't getting any better. Where Marcus Bowe is like, well, okay, he's a rookie. We can, not ideal if he has to come in and play, but we think there's upside with him. So it's just a mentality thing too.
It is interesting because I'm feeling competing right now, like competing thoughts in my brain. This is sort of where I'll, I guess, leave off on discussion on new guys. This is pretty much everybody that's happened. So, almost. We have one more to go after this, and it's important, but it's quick. My brain is competing a little bit here, right? So Jermaine Illuminator signed for 3 years. Tell me that right tackle is pretty much locked up for 3 years. Regardless, because if you don't have a solution by the end of the second year and you can't cut, then you just don't cut him. You just keep him that third year and you figure it out then. If you do have a solution, then you have a solution, and right tackle is still locked up for the third year. That tells me that you have so much time now where that Marcus Bowe moving to the inside conversation becomes very real. But where James Hudson comes in is him being cut, and there really aren't, like, I haven't really looked at this, like, to see who else there is to bring in. Do you want to move away from your backup? Now it's crazy. Like, so I don't know. And like, do you want to
negative? And just because he's a body doesn't mean it's necessarily good to have. If he's bad, he's bad.
Yeah. So. To me, I guess it almost becomes a competing financial thing of, is getting the guy on the inside going to be more expensive than getting the guy on the outside? Because if the guy if the backup tackle that you feel comfortable with is going to come in at random number $5 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be your backup tackle. And then, like, the interior guy that you're targeting is going to come in at $7 million. Well, then it's like, okay, well, then I guess move Marcus Bowe to the inside and sign the cheaper tackle, because we're talking about backup regardless or whatever, right? But if the interior guy you want is cheaper, I almost feel compelled to just do the cheaper option and keep Marcus Bowe as backup tackle.
Hmm. I wish this was Bo's third year, not his second year, where it's a little more, I know what I'm getting from him. I still feel it's like kind of an unknown and, raw.
So I think where I end up with this is simple. It's March. Calm down. Don't worry too much about this stuff yet. We have the draft. The draft
We're
may
not
change
solving the world's problems yet.
In my mock draft that I did for GNS, I picked Max Ianacker, right tackle out of Arizona State in the second round. So at the top of the second round, I felt very comfortable with that. If that ends up being the pick, then maybe Jermaine Illuminator is cut after 1 year. You know what I mean? Like there's other options. And again, forget the draft. After the draft, there's another wave of free agency where suddenly everybody's market changes. A team really needs a wide receiver. They didn't get one in the draft. Now all of a sudden, they're more receptive to spending more money on a wide receiver. So there is another
right tackle
wave.
In the second round tells me that this is a long-term plan.
Exactly.
We're not trying to win now. We're not trying to cut corners. We're building this the right way.
We're doing football.
Yeah. And that's good because that tells me that, a guy like Harbaugh, doesn't have the pressure to win right now. And again, he's not a spring chicken either.
True.
So, he's not what's his name in with the Raiders? The hell's his name? Coach. Just got fired.
Pete Carroll.
He's not a Pete Carroll who's like, I got to win right now because I'm 83. But he's also not a spring chicken. So if they do something like that, that would be really encouraging to me. And it's okay for me to use a second round pick on some guys and they get limited time on the field because we're building for something bigger.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is Pete Carroll in like the best shape for an 83-year-old? He's not 83, is he?
No, I was kidding.
He's in his 70 something though.
He's 74, 75 maybe.
It's crazy.
Oh yeah, he's in better shape than I am. That's for sure. But that's not really saying much.
All right, we are starting to run long here. We're at an hour. So most important thing that we got to get before the end. The Giants also signed fullback Patrick Ricard from the Baltimore Ravens. This is a big deal. This is not like whatever. This is not a special team signing. This is an integral part of the offense, and he is very good at it. He is very good at the fullback position. A fullback, to me, it's the linebacker of the offense. You go in there and you just hit people, and you hit them well. And if there's no one to hit, the person you're supposed to hit's already been hit, then you hit somebody else. Keep hitting people. And he's very, very good at it. He doesn't just initiate blocks. He smacks people around. He can knock people on their ass. He can drive people out of a hole and keep them moving. He's very smart. He's been in this offense. He's comfortable in it. Patrick Ricard is going to be a... Dude, I'm like... If they can figure out the interior of the offensive line, are you really ready to see the full strength of what Cam Scatterbo can bring? Because
I was gonna say, if you having Scatterbo and this guy together, that's gonna be bruising the hell out of people.
It's if you can get Scatterbo to the point where the only people he has to run over are DBs, he's scoring a touchdown. Like it's the only he won't if a linebacker or a defensive lineman's able to catch him from behind because he's got to break 6 defensive back tackles. But if Patrick Ricard can blow a linebacker out of the hole and this stupid offensive line can actually create a crease for Ricard to get through and Scatterbo to get through, dude, I feel. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself.
It may not happen.
Leg
this year,
broke in 100 pieces
in the next couple of years. It happening, sure.
It's a big deal. I'm very excited about this. I don't think that it was very expensive either, so it's hard to even get mad about it.
And also, it's another weapon if it's 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 too. If you want to, have another battering game. Because also, not to sound like gloom and doom crank here, but are we sure this guy who's going to be playing 16 games a year or 17 games a year every year, just on the way he plays the game with such being a badass?
I don't think you should ever think any NFL player should be playing 17 games a year. I don't think you should take any running back at that level either. But I also think this exact talking point, this narrative of like the way he plays should be, look at his Arizona games played at Arizona State and before that. You know what I mean? Like this is who he is. And he had
right.
So it's funny you say this because he was on Rich Eisen show. and they were going through this tired fucking conversation about Jackson Dart and sliding and 4th and 1 and whatever. Dude, right? And it's like, it's March. We're still talking about this shit. And Cam Scatterwood, like, completely dead-faced, is like, it's just not who we are, me and him. If it's 3rd and 1, we're getting a yard. Like, I'm going to put everything on the line to get a yard. There's no... the punt is not acceptable for me and Jackson Dart. It's just not acceptable. And it never was for Cam Scatterwood. So, like, I know it's, like, a very funny meme to be, like, Cam Scatterwood at 28 years old and he's drooling and it's, like, you know, a guy with Down syndrome or something like that. It's a very funny meme. I get it, whatever. And I'm not saying you're not clever or funny or whatever. But, like, also, I don't think he's any more at risk than anybody else playing the running back position. I think the only reason he would get hurt now is because he's at the NFL level and these are NFL players hitting him and not... You know,
that was my point.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he's brittle or something. It's just that, you know, if he was to go down, and most running backs, you lose even for a game a year or 2 games or something. I don't want that drop off of that ferociousness. And we are building an identity of being a tough team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've said on this show that we're building a team where we're going to run the ball and we're going to smash it down your throat. And then we're going to be cycling in linemen, you know, guards and centers of the future are going to be badasses and maulers. So having a guy like him at fullback will just kind of keep that bar up if for some reason this guy was not in the lineup in a particular day.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, you're 100% right. But I it's good that we clarified that because that talking point does drive me nuts. As if, like, Mike Allstott didn't make an entire career doing literally what Cam Scatterwood does. Like, it's fucking impossible.
Cam Scatterwood got hurt on a fluky, freaky play where he's a receiver 15 yards downfield. It wasn't him trying to, you know...
He's trying to high point a catch, too. Like, yeah, exactly. He literally got hurt not playing his game.
Yeah.
Like,
he also got hurt doing something that most running backs can't do. So, I mean... So it's just silly. Yeah. But, you know, narratives be narrating.
Yeah, but it, like I said, like, yeah, okay, I get it. This is new for you seeing Cam Scatterwood do this, but he's been doing this his whole life. Just like Mike Allstott did it his whole life, and he had a perfectly great career doing it in Tampa Bay. So I until I see evidence that the actual play that Cam Scatterwood has that's unique to him and just running people over gets him hurt more than once, I'm not going to buy into this. Like, he can't keep it. Like, why not? Why can't he? Says who?
And going into the tent and then coming out when having nothing wrong.
Yeah, that shit doesn't count either when there seems to be no uniformity or standards or whatever. And it's you know what it is? It's about protecting the NFL shield. That's what it is.
Yep.
So, in any event, next week we'll have our show. Hopefully, I can't go Monday, man. Forgot. Couldn't
can't
tell
go
you.
Monday.
Yeah. Okay. But we'll have our show next week at some point. This is a weird time of year. We're like Calvin Austin getting signed in the middle of this. That's annoying. You and I try to avoid that, but it's been we couldn't go.
Well, I mean, again, this is your first year of doing double duty, so we're figuring out the logistics of how, you know, you're doing this. So that's fine.
Yeah, that's also. I also work 9 hours a day as well.
And also, if you people out there are really desperate for our talk, or more importantly, Grump's, he's on this other program that's on a lot more than we are, so you can hear his, you know, golden voice a lot more. So
yeah, you can see my mustache on Giants Nation show.
You know, they always have the little clips on YouTube, like the preview, and it's usually your mug with that.
I know
that porn stash. It's fantastic. Now that should be Dirk Diggler.
But next week, if there isn't any significant news, actually, I don't think there's going to be enough significant news next week for us to cover like an hour. So we'll go over the entire roster as it stands and where our concerns lie as of that point. Hopefully that will be earlier on in the week. I think Wednesday morning release is probably possible.
I would, you know, if you're one who's anxiously waiting by your phone, I would be waiting Wednesday morning.
There you go. So if you go on Kalshi, they might have a bet on when the next Just Giants is going to. That's the website, right? Kalshi.
And if you are looking for that bet, please call 1-800-GAMBLER and get yourself some help.
All right, everyone. We'll see you guys next time. Until then, go Giants.
Go Giants.